What we do, this session is weekly. We catch up with people that we see that are building amazing stuff or like doing amazing things both in their career or in their businesses. Our goal is really to share people's journeys, people's perspective, so that you can learn one or two things from it as you are up in your journey. Our theme for the year is how do ordinary people become leaders who change the world? How do, as ordinary as they are, going about their daily lives, encompassed about by like serious issues. For example, if you're in Lagos, like the traffic, like the hot weather, how do
Mm.
you navigate all these things and change your world? And your world here meaning it could be things around you, your community, people around you, anywhere around you. How do you change the world? How do you change the society? How do you live um, around you? How do you live the community around you a much better place as you live? Right. So today we are with Fanto. Fanto, I will just quickly read her bio, but we'll learn more about her as she shares as she shares her experience, her journey, um, to inspire us. And I also would like to talk about how we want beyond inspiration, practical things that people can begin to do today that would enable them to get to where they want to go.
Hmm.
So Fanto engineers solutions where systems fail. As a strategic partnership and resource mobilization specialist, she has spent 7 years turning policy frameworks into funded realities across West and Eastern Africa, from UNDP Kenya partnership strategy to grassroots innovation hubs in Nigeria. Selected as one of the 36 fellows from the 12,000 applicants for the African Union UNDP African Union Leadership Fellowship Program. She operates at the intersection of program management, development finance, youth led innovation. Her professional work asks, how do we build infrastructure for Africa? Africa's economic. Her writing explores what gets built inside us when system breaks. Fanto's essay on agriculture, industrialization, partnership and development have been published on Medium and recognized in the AU NEPAD Continental Essay Competition. She is currently working on her debut novel, a fictional story about the exploitation of cocoa industry in Africa. She believes leadership begins long before anyone calls you a leader. And that's the most important question is, what should I become? And that the most important question isn't what should I become, but what am I meant to build? Ba- Based between Freetown, Abuja, Nairobi, Sierra Leone by birth, Pan African by conviction. This is a wonderful bio. I am thoroughly motivated by this. And I like what Fanto has in her bio, which is an important isn't what should I become, but what I'm meant to build. Thank
Mhm.
you so much, Fanto.
Thank
Welcome to the live.
you. Thank you for the introduction. I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, we can hear you. And I noticed you were coughing. Do you want to take a
Yeah,
few
I
minutes?
know I'm okay. I have my tea here, so I think the conversation can just continue.
Yeah, yeah, great. Thank God you're sipping your tea. I was saying that your bio is, kind of also depicts what we believe at the builders, which is that
Mm.
a lot of people are so fascinated by the leadership title, but they forget about like who they become in the journey. That's really what true leadership is about, who you become in the journey of, making impact, in the journey of serving people, right? So my first question, and I see a lot of people have joined us on the stream. As we'll keep discussing, if you have any question, please put in the comments. Either you're joining us from YouTube, on LinkedIn, or you are currently on this stream with us. If you have any questions for Fanto, you can, type it in the comments, and I'm sure we will take it. The first question I want us to start off with, Fanto, is many people feel the need to have a specific title, or a massive background or a massive bank account to start changing the world, right?
Mhm.
Looking back at your journey from, university to the UNDP program, what was the first ordinary moment you realized that, oh, maybe I didn't need any permission to lead anything?
Um, Thank you very much. I think that sets the tone and the foundation for the discussion. So I think first, let me just lay a very important principle, which I think I got to learn in the journey, is that you don't pursue your dreams. You actually position yourself to be able to achieve dreams. And so I'm going to answer this question, my experience, and then give some lessons that I learned in my journey so far. So I think for me the pivotal moment was when I got back because I did my masters in Coventry, UK, and when I got back to Nigeria, I think that was when I really start understanding what it means to be led. And I think for me the first thing I learned was leaders take the lead when they see the need. So my first job I got was at a innovation hub, and there was a project they wanted to take me on, and they were explaining as a project manager when you come in. This is one of the projects. So the project was about introducing kids in rural communities to innovation and technology. But they didn't really know how to go about it. I was like, okay, so let's have the kids come over. Let me know what I'm dealing with. So the kids came over. They invited some kids from community schools just across Abuja here. They came to our hub because I was like, have they done any need assessment? Like, what are we dealing here with? You can't just come up with a project if you can't really identify what the need is. Um, and I remember when the kids came, I was shocked to my bone to know that some of them have never even seen a computer before. And they're being taught computer, and I'm like, how are they teaching you computer and you don't have like practical experience of what? I mean, you don't even have the perception of what a computer look like in the physical sense. And then just having conversation with the kids, and some of them are saying they would like to go to space someday. So after that experience, what I did was I went to go and meet my managers, and I told them that I think you know what we need to do. Let's have a truck retrofitted with tech items, and take instead of them coming here, let's go and meet them in the communities. I think that will make more sense, you know, and let them get to see. It's not just taking because then I mean we were all on the fade of just future of works. The digital skills are very important in the world we're transitioning. This was far back as 2019. So I'm like, I think we need to go down there and see what we're doing. But let's take our equipment there and let's have the project. Let it be a project, a mobile learning lab that can move from one community to another. And interestingly, they did agree with my idea. So I think for me that was the first lesson. Like leaders really just take the lead when they see the need. It's not about, I didn't say, okay, I'm not in a position to make decisions here. Let me just sit back and watch. I was going to lead the project fine, but I was not like the top. I was still working under the programs manager, and we still had an ED then that I was still working under. But and they agreed, and we did the project. Let me tell you, this was one of the best projects I've ever worked on. When we started the project, we just had about maybe 50 kids. We think by the time I left the project, we had reached over 2,000 kids, and we had spread across 5 different communities. We even went as far as Bono, which you know, was so enlightening. For those who are watching who don't know, Bono is in another state in Nigeria. And then, interestingly, we were able to get Google grants from Google, Oracle, and I was able to also get IBM and Microsoft to this project, the four tech giants in this project, to partner with them. So, can you say, I'll just imagine if I didn't take the initiative of trying to innovate, let's be a bit innovative with the project and get it from that stage to another. I'm just imagining what it would have been like. So for me, this is what I've learned. Like I said, you position yourself for your dreams. And before then, I'd always wanted to work in the UN before I started that job. I remember I came back, I applied so many times for roles at the UN, and I got rejected so many times. And I started researching, what skills do I need? What do I need to be able to get to that point where I can work in the UN? So you position yourself. I knew I needed to build my capacity, I needed to build skills. But more than that, what I want to say is for people who, if you look around you and you observe, for me, I'm a Christian, so I go back to these basic beliefs. These are the principles I think I go by. Instead of saying, oh, I have a goal somewhere, let me find my purpose, I need to lead in this particular way. I think the first is whatever your hand find it to do it well. When I started doing this project, I don't sit on motorcycle. I had to start sitting on motorcycle to go to some of these communities for the first time. Yes, I had to do it. I had to do the project so well that we were able to attract Google. We're able to, you know what it means to attract Google? To attract Oracle. In fact, even nationwide, the project, people heard what we're doing. I remember one day somebody called me and said, I just saw your documentary. They saw your documentary on AIT. I'm like, me? What do I do on AIT? They're like, well, they're covering something on innovation, and your story came out that you're training kids in IDP camps, in communities, how to get digital skills. And this, so you see, whatever your hand find it to do, if you're looking for that role to lead, do it well. And the other thing the Bible talks about, faithfulness in little things, it brings more. So if you're faithful in the little, you're not waiting for when you get, oh, when I get the leadership role. You're faithful in the little, and then it will bring more opportunities. And the third thing is, if you're faithful with somebody else's own at another man's work, you will also get the opportunity to what? To get your own. So I think this were some of the key things I learned. And so leadership, this that was the pivotal moment for me. Let me just say it. Working in that innovation hub, that was it. It just taught me, like, look, we are sitting down waiting. You don't need to wait. Leadership is about positioning. Leaders take the lead when they see the need. They don't wait. Yes. Hope I was able
Thank
to do justice to that.
Yeah, yes. Thank you so much, Fanto. And I think that you shared important things, which is a lot of people are just sitting on their hands and just like waiting. If somebody, there's this thing in Nigeria, if I become the president, I will do this. But you are the president of your group, of your students' group. You're not doing anything. Why do you think that suddenly when you become that position, you'll be able to do something, right? And I think that one key thing we're taking away from your session is leaders take the lead when they see the need. I think that is a
Yeah.
that is an important thing we need to frame somewhere, right? Taking the lead whenever there is the need, whenever there is the occasion around you, taking up initiative. And I also talked about taking up initiative, not waiting for someone to tell you what to do, just
Do
sharing your idea.
yes.
Yeah.
And speaking up is so important because I think sometimes you get intimidated to think, okay, if I have the opportunity where I can present, well, I know something is wrong and I need to correct it, and I need the partnership, I need the people to come together so we can correct such wrong and make it right. I think sometimes again that timidity is there, or that non assurance of myself. So I think all that really wraps around that, that level of taking ownership and leadership in so many situations and circumstances around us.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know that I was immediately you said this, I was going to ask you a question. Considering our culture and like where we come from, most times speaking up is seen as is kind of a double-edged sword, right? So how do people balance that out? Sometimes when you speak up, we are seen as being too brutish. You are putting yourself out there. Why are you? And then sometimes when you don't speak up, yeah, you know that things are going wrong and there's nothing you can do about it. But then if you speak up, you're going to probably have a target on your back and people are going to say you are too arrogant, you are too there are a lot of adjectives, right? Used to qualify you. How do people balance out,
Yeah.
those two things?
I think, well, that's very valid, thinking about our background and culture. But I think that still doesn't matter if you're somebody who is so sound in knowing who you are and what you stand for. Because I think that's where it now boils down to identity, you know. And I think also it's something you do with wisdom as well. Because like I said, it depends on the context. You don't want to put yourself in a life threatening situation where it becomes a situation where your life is at stake. However, that still does not stop you from speaking out. And I think we've been so timid for a long time, and we've been be quiet there. Who are you to say that thing? you know. So I think we should speak up. The context matter, but we still cannot hold back and say This is because a lot is at stake. Because at the end of the day, you like, what is at stake? There's something I do. I tell people that I'm somebody that is, I can be very daring at times. I remember there are some people that I've reached out to on LinkedIn. Maybe I attended an event and I just took notice of some things which I think they should correct. Yes, and I do. I will say I attended your event. It was such a, obviously talk about the good part, but I noticed some things which I think people should correct the next time, because it's not just affecting me. It's maybe a comment I heard from other people that attended the event or something. So it starts from those little things, you see. I said some have been very receptive and say, "Oh, we didn't notice that. Thank you for drawing our attention to that." Others, I'm like, the highest they can do is ignore me, but at least I said what I said. You know, yeah.
Thank you so much, Fanto, for sharing that. We build audacity slow by slow. I'm not sure. A step at a
Yes.
time. I think that's the
A
right
step at a
word.
time, and the context also matters.
Context
Some
also
things
matters.
maybe you have seen it, maybe instead of you reporting and just complain about it, because that's something else we are good at, just complaining, talking about things and pointing out the wrongs. Maybe you can now become that solution for what you've seen.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe you right the wrongs of others. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fanto, for sharing this. You build audacity step by step, but also the context matters, right?
Mm.
And you reach out and engage, you take initiative, and most times you could be the solution, right, to
Yes.
the issue that you see. My next question is really, in your work with the African Young Women Leadership Fellowship, you are surrounded by a lot of high achievers. What do you think is the biggest mental barrier that keeps, ordinary people from stepping into leadership? Do you think it's fear? Do you think it's lack of audacity that we talked about? Do you think it's resources? Because anywhere you go to, like everybody's talking about capital, that is because I don't have capital. Or do you think it's something else? What do you think is the biggest mental barriers that is, preventing people from stepping into, leadership position or from taking initiative in whatever they are working on?
That's a amazing question. Um, Fear, yes, that's valid. Resources, yeah, valid. But I think something else that humans don't we don't pay attention is the aspect of imperfection. I think for me, imperfection is the constitution to give engagement to most people. So let me explain the context I'm coming from. We humans in general, we like to be so predictable. We love when we have the answers, when we know for certain. We are people we're certain beings. We like to be certain in life. We like to be certain about things. So I think um that's why I see even people who are doing great thing in your mocks, people who are not, let me say, either religious or anything. One thing I think I've learned is that every time they question what is made around them, they find answers. They question things and they're able to provide solution and find answers. So I think we must learn to sit in imperfection to see the genius around us, because I feel when you are not able to say, oh, things, if you're not able to look at imperfection and then now see, okay, because I feel like everything around us is not perfect. Even the most expensive watch, maybe if you study it carefully, there's something you might see that, maybe this just needs to be a little bit, you know. So when people cannot just sit in imperfection or deal with imperfection of, I do something and it doesn't have to be perfect the first time, the second time, the third time. I think that is where sometimes we struggle, aside from just resources and, oh, I have the fear of doing something. We also deal with this imperfection. I need things to be perfect. I need them to be direct. I need them to be straight. I need to be certain that this is going to work out. So that in our inability to just sit in imperfection and do things imperfectly the first time, the second time, maybe sometimes even the third, fourth time, and then maybe by the sixth time, that's when you're able to, you know, get it right. Is another strong bottleneck which I feel we struggle with people. That ability to just sit in it. And then I think for fear, obviously very valid. People have fear about what is the worst that can happen. Okay, let me give you let me just give make this practical. I remember when I started my writing journey, I wanted to be a writer on Medium, because I'm like, I was thinking maybe you need to be one intellectual pro to be able to, because I mean, if you read articles on Medium, quite highly intellectual, they challenge your thinking, they're thought leaders that put a lot of content out there. Um so I decided, because in my office we used to publish blogs and stuff like that. It was not my work, but sometimes I just write and then then maybe I can propose it to the communication teams. Do you people want to post this in anything, or do you want to share it on our website or something? And then so I used to write, but I don't publish it. And then I signed up. I remember then I'd signed up, but I didn't publish anything. And then there was one article I wrote on food wastage in Nigeria, and then I mean, on sustainability, but was on food wastage. I remember giving it to the team, and they're like, "What are we going to do with this? How does this? What's the end?" They started questioning me a lot. I'm like, "Okay, give me back my article." And I took it. I published it on. I published it on Medium, and believe me, few months after that, I think even 2 months, I got the opportunity to apply for this UNDP fellowship, and it's a long process. It was like 6 months of assessment. And one of the stages, the essay writing stage, guess what? They asked us to write about a problem, a challenge in Africa, and offer a solution to it. Guess what I used? I wanted to write on agriculture, and I wanted to write on food waste, and I already had this article. Do you know this article was what I used to form the basis of my thesis for my essay? Yes, and I got selected, by the way. And I can also remember the NEPAD and African Union Agenda 2063 essay that I won. I can bet you I was the last person to submit. I submitted 11:59 p.m. That was when I submitted. I was the last person. Although other things happened in between, but I was the last to click send. And I wrote on the Africa We Want essay. My essay was based on the Africa We Want. I was the last person to submit. I'm talking about fair now. That was then. I was questioning, what if this, that. Eventually, I submitted 11:59, and I came third in the entire Africa. Fair. Some of the things that hold us back are so you want to question really. I think we should start questioning, what am I afraid of? What really am I afraid of? And what's the worst that can happen? So that's in the aspect of fear. And I think resources, funny. I told somebody that if I want to start a poultry farm, it's like you need capital, Nigeria, whenever some people are talking about their ideas, I need capital. I need, I need some sudden. I've done my feasibility. I've done my business plan. My feasibility study says I need so amount. I'm like, that's not how I approach it, right? And it's not to. I'm not saying their concern is not valid. Yes, obviously you need money, but I don't think that's a challenge. I told somebody what I would do is I will walk up to a poultry farm and ask the owner, look, can I have 10 crates of eggs? Can I go and help you sell these 10 crates of eggs? What am I trying to do? I'm not just testing my idea, but I'm trying to raise funds as well. I'll bargain. This is how much I'll send it for. If I can send this egg, can I have this certain amount of this? So in doing that, I'm not just learning, but I'm also getting some money to start my own. So sometimes people want to do something and they said, oh, I'm not trying to be a motivational speaker here and tell you aspire to perspire and that money is not important. But sometimes I'm trying to say one of the bottleneck is that we don't think differently. How can I approach this differently? If I don't have money, does that mean I will not do anything? If I don't have the resources, does that mean I will not do anything? There's something I've been working on, and resources really is not my problem, because resources is not just the capital. Sometimes it can be maybe the um it can be Resources can be in form of like maybe the equipment you need, maybe people, maybe you need people to be able to do what you want to do. And I think once we put in ourselves, there's something I learned about the term education, that it's the education is something I define as the right to human spirit to be able to experience the world freely, to question it deep enough, to find options that exist in it, and to know which of the options that you're supposed to embrace. So anything I try to do now, after questioning it, I ask myself, are there options? Which options exist? And which one can I embrace at this time? Okay, so I don't have the capital. What else do I have? You know, do I have people that I can go and meet? Can I negotiate? Can I be able to maybe get, yeah, I have an equipment. I want to start posting some educational content online. You don't have a big camera, but you have a phone. So I think we should also bring ourselves to that point where we think to find options that exist within our ideas, and then to know which option to embrace as a matter of supreme importance and urgency for that idea or whatever we're trying to do in that state. Yes. I hope that is how I will approach things. Yes.
Thank you so much, Fanto. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I loved your, perspectives to this question, which is that we want to see all the pictures, we want the entire thing. Even as Christians, we're like, oh, I want the entire thing. Let me know if it will work before I start.
Mhm.
We want certainty. We want, someone said, if you ask people to recite the Bible, it's only the promises they will remember. They will not
Mhm.
remember every other thing. It's like that thing that would happen for me. Everyone wants the full picture, but we need to
Mhm.
learn to sit with imperfections, and we
Mhm.
need to learn to think differently.
Mhm.
Yeah, I thank you so much for saying this, because also in the
Mhm.
context of like social media, where people are also sharing some negative experiences, most times when you sit down with your thoughts, it seems like that's the only thing you can recall. But you
Mhm.
need to force yourself to think, yes, we're in Nigeria, yes, things are not working, but are there different ways I can still approach my idea and solve the
Mhm.
solution beyond all these things we've recognized that are the issues, right? Beyond all of them, because sometimes when you sit down to think, you just find yourself, you know, regurgitating all the things that are online, all the reasons why they've told you to not work, right?
Yeah.
But we need to force ourselves to think differently. That's the way we find the genius. That's the way we all have options. I also like what you said about options. There are options in our ideas. There are different ways of approaching an issue. We shouldn't be box thinking, right? We should go
Mhm.
outside the box, so we'll find solutions to our issues. Thanks so much for sharing this.
Yeah.
My
You're
next
welcome.
my next question will be around your role in, resource mobilization. And I also think this is important because yes, you've also taught us how to think differently about capital, right? But sometimes getting people to invest in a vision, especially for early entrepreneurs, most times is difficult. For someone who is currently at home watching us and wants to start something, wants to start a project, wants to start a business, how do they convince others to join, especially when it's just them, right? How do you convince people to buy into an idea, whether it's a personal project you're working on, whether it's a business idea, whether it's something that you're doing for the community? Most times convincing people to, part away with their money is a big issue. How do you think that people can, approach this?
Hmm. Valid, but I think I mean, from my experiences, you definitely have to bring something that people can see. So you actually have to start. You have to start. I mean, obviously, working with entrepreneurs, I do know there are different stages in terms of funding. There are entrepreneurs that do have the opportunity to join incubation programs where they are afford this opportunity to be able to raise capital. Where I mean, they're from the idea stage. But even that is just not an idea. You have to have a minimum viable, product as well, which we call the MVP. You need to have an MVP as well, at least minimum. That's you've tested the idea in the market and you've seen that it's something that can work, that you do have a market. It's not just an idea. You actually do have a business, and then they do have opportunity. But let me just this is more for startups and people who are going into entrepreneurship proper. But I'm talking about the everyday person who is just trying to do a project or something, and they need people to come on board. From my experience, you have to start, no matter how little it is. Because what are you going to present or show to people? Oh, I have an idea. I want you people to come in on board. Fine, good. But in terms of resource mobilization, you have to be able to present something that is soluble. So, and I think one problem we also have is that we feel um, we need to put everything in an app. We feel like all our problems, our solution is just technology. Oh, I need a website. Oh, I need this, I need this. Sometimes those are not the things you can start with, right? Um, so for example, let me give an example. Um, when there was a project there was another project I was doing in financial literacy, and I can remember, Chioma, you were also involved in this project at some point. That was how I met you, and we were looking for, obviously how to, you know, go this project. But let me just explain. Let me say, for example, you're in your community and you are looking for how to, we talk about, let me say, financial literacy. You're looking for how to maybe teach women around you how to be financial literate. Simple as that. It's a simple project. And then you see that, say, okay, I want to train 10 women. Where I start with 10. Or maybe my target is actually 1,000. But my capacity, maybe I can start with 10. What can you do? You have to start. It starts with you. Maybe there are some, you have to ask yourself, do I have the capacity to do this thing I want to do? Maybe you want to go and look at, do you have the skills, what it will take? Okay, if you have the skills, who are the people you need to work with? You have to go identify the people in the community and everything. But the most important thing is, if you can even start with 10 or even maybe two women, that okay, I have trained two women, this is my capacity. And then storytelling, that's my other point. You need to be able to, I think sometimes when we talk about storytelling, people think it's just packaging a story about how you went to a community and you've impacted how many women and then throwing it. Because another word I think that we use so much is empowerment, but that's not the case. I'm talking here about communication. Being able to communicate means you know your audience, you know who you're meeting, you know what their interest is, and you know what you want from them, and you know how you are going to communicate and tell that story of what you have done. For let me give, for instance, if I tell you, oh, um my name is Fanto. For example, I'm introducing myself. I want you to even listen to me about what I'm doing. My name is Fanto Fode. I am a project manager. I have been in project management for the past 7 years. Yeah, yeah. Okay, sounds fine. But if I meet you, I say, hi, Choma. Hi, how are you? And I tell you, and you ask me, what do you do? I'm like, oh, when people have project and they need to know how to deliver within the right frame time, with the available resources they have. I'm that go-to person. I am the person they meet when they need that solution to be solved. So already I'm a project manager, right? So people need to know how to tell their stories of what they're doing. And to be able to do that, you also have to document. Because I think a lot of other things that people do, they don't document. Just like you take picture. It's not about taking picture. You are clearly able to tell somebody from the beginning, this is what I did, to the end, this is what I did. From here, this is how I move on. A to B to C to D. So you're able to document very well. Oh, I spent so amount. You have evidence. Oh, I trained so women. What is the curriculum? Were you able to measure? Did you do a baseline study? Did you do, an endline study after the training? So you need to all your process you need to be documented to be able to show, because when you're going to meet funders, even in the entrepreneurship space, they're asking you, they're going to ask you, how much profit, what's your profit so far? They're going to want to know how much profit you've made so far before coming to ask for money. So you see, if you're not able to document your entire process of what you've done, even if it's just one life you've been able to impact, even if you have not even fully gone into the project, but so far this is what and what and what I have done. It compels, it shows that you're somebody that takes action and they know what they're dealing with. Because even storytelling sometimes, like business, I say it's a game of numbers. So you need to know your numbers. You need to know the story. You need to know what you're doing and document them. So you document, it comes to the process of mobilizing now. So you're able to mobilize. And we saw mobilization, different stages, obviously. For the stage I've worked in, like big, something like the UN, they're mobilizing on a big, on a grand, scale. But I'm just saying, for everyday person, if you want to do a project or something, make sure you're able to gather data first, so you have a justification of what you're doing, you have an idea of what you're working around, you're able to document your process, and please start. You don't need so much or so many people to start with. It can be one, two, three, four, five, 10, at least. With that, you have let me say, a prototype of an idea. You've tested your idea, you have a prototype, something that you can say, okay, this works, it can work. And then you can now look for how to mobilize, meet people to mobilize, gather funding and everything. But you need to start as little as possible. And then also, like I said, the communication and storytelling part is very important. Being able to identify the people that, just don't meet anybody. Make sure the people you are meeting are people that also align with what you are working on. Because you can't go and meet Google to come and fund health, something in health. No. Maybe Bill Gates Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation can do that. Google, you can meet them, something like digital HP, things like digital transformation, digital literacy. So you also need to know who you want to go and mobilize to. You need to understand what their interest is, because that's how, if your interests align, it's easier to work with you. You can't go and meet people that your interests are just far apart. Yes. So for resource mobilization, those are the key things that are very important.
Thank you so much, Fanto. I think you've given us a mini masterclass on raising capital. um, which you started off with by saying you need to start no matter how little. And we've talked about how start imperfectly, start it not being right, start it being not aesthetically pleasing. Just start. Start with as much as you can do within your power, and then document that process. Document it. Whatever happened day one, day two to day 100. Document your process. Document your impact, how many people you've reached. Document your achievements. If it's a social enterprise, if it's a business enterprise, document your profit. Then you've also talked about storytelling, that we must learn to tell our stories in a way that would appeal to the audience. And you closed off by saying we must find partners that align. Most times it's not that people hate your idea, it's just that your priorities are not aligned. It's not you're not speaking to the right person. And you will say nobody wants to give me capital, but you're not speaking to the right people, and your priorities are, you might be speaking to the right people also, but your current priorities are not aligned with their current priorities, right?
Mhm.
Because you also know organizations also change what they're working on per time, right? So you must make sure you're speaking to the right people, speaking to them, using storytelling to sell your idea to them, and you will definitely be able to mobilize resources.
Can
I
I
know,
give another tip? Sorry,
yes, please.
before I do want to, a very important tip when you're, I mean, for people who are writing proposal or you're trying to, sorry, I left this out. Ensure that when you're communicating also, because sometimes when we present proposal and ideas, we focus so much on the problem. Make sure when you're approaching these people, you study what they've already done and say, look, we know what you people have already done in this area. This is how we can come in to help you achieve your mandate. That sells a lot of time when you're writing proposal. So of just focusing, this is the problem, this is the problem. You can approach it this way and say, we know what you people have been working on. For like example, Google, we told them, we know you people are trying to really, you know, um focus on digital literacy and digital skills across Africa.
Yeah.
And then that time they were just penetrating. That was the time they started the Google Impact Challenge, trying to penetrate Nigeria, come in and really do this digital grassroots training thing. And we're like, we understand this. This is what we've done. And with your, support, we can help you people reach the amount of people you want to reach. We can help you spread and reach, in no matter of time. So can you see, you're speaking to their interests. In fact, you're taking they'll just say, oh, so we don't need to stress ourselves for Nigeria. We have people who are willing, who we've seen the amazing work they've done. It's proven, it's not just facts, because they actually did due diligence. Come to our site, see what we've done, see us on our day to day when we're working on the project. So that part of honesty, to please be honest, make sure you actually do the work. And another thing I also want to say, sometimes you don't need to duplicate, you want to start something. Look for people who are already doing what you want to do. And then
Mm-hmm.
partner with them. Maybe see if there is a gap within what they're already doing or doing that same thing you're doing. Look for the gap and maybe you address that gap and come in as a partner. Because sometimes we try to do multiply. There are so many projects going on, multiplying, doing the same thing. It's so common here in Nigeria. Oh, I want to start an NGO. Oh, I have this idea. I have this idea. Don't work in isolation. Look for people around you who are already doing, who already, maybe sometimes they have the resources even. You
Yeah.
just come in there to be like, okay, what have you people done? What is the gap? Look for those gaps. And then sometimes it's easier when you're addressing a gap like that for you to actually get the resources that you need.
Thank you so much, Fanto. You've touched on important things, which is that you know how they say there's no monopoly of idea. That you are thinking of doing something doesn't mean nobody has done it. People are doing some things. Yes, there are a lot of problems in Africa, a lot of things that we need to solve for. But most times when people they say there's a class I'm kind of mentoring, and when people talk about policies, they talk about it as if there's nothing existing. You are talking about the problem like nobody has ever thought. You are the first person to think about this problem, and therefore you can solve it. But we neglect, documenting what has already been done. And then you also talked about how to communicate with funders. You align it with their priorities. You acknowledge that they have done something in this field, and this is now where you extend their reach. This is where you help them achieve more. This also means that before you mobilize any resources, you need to investigate the person. You know, the
Mhm.
people send random things and they don't even read. Some people send even in LinkedIn. I know that I want it this way. People will just send random messages. They're not even reading the person's bio. Is this aligned? Is
Yeah.
this the person I'm looking at? Is this one person I'm? You will need to also do some sort of research, and you sell your idea if it aligns with what they are doing, and you talked about it. You also need to do the work. I know we're in the age of AI. A lot of people have been dragging AI and a lot of things about. Yeah, you need to actually do the work and document it, because when they agree to fund you, most of these donors will do due diligence, right? So you also need to
Mhm.
provide proof that you've done what you said, that you do. The next question is really, so if anyone has a question, please put it in the chat so that Phanto will also be able to take it. And I know that we are quickly running out of time, but she'll be able to, touch on it a few minutes before the live ends. You're passionate about food security and agriculture, and I think, and the
Mm.
great leadership metaphor is, how do you convince people that small things, right? Small, like in agri, like better seeds, if you improve the seed, a simple irrigation tool, they are actually the keys to changing the world food system, for example, right? So I know we're talking about agri here, but you can also apply across different systems. How do you convince people that small changes, slight changes in innovation, slight changes in the way of thinking, and I know you shared one with us today, can change an entire system, can change an entire industry? if you even bring it down to Nigeria, if you sit down with an average person on the road, they will tell you all the 100 million things that is wrong with the country, right? How do you convince people like this? Is that we need to only change one small tiny thing, and everything, and it will have a ripple effect on the entire system.
Um, I know this is on food, agriculture, food, but I think I think we've been seduced by shiny things in technology. I can remember I was asking somebody, you see a post or a conference, an international conference, where they'll say things like, "Oh, AI is revolutionizing Africa." How? They'll show you a drone flying over a farm. So yeah, I just have to make this comment, and I'm not downplaying their efforts, by the way. You know, we've been seduced by this shiny thing. You see a drone flying over a farm, and sometimes I'm like, how has AI revolutionized Africa? So I think we love the app. We love the drone, the AI solutions that have made headlines, which is good. I'm happy that we have that. But it's a lot of people don't know that most of the world's food system or the world food is grown by smallholder farmers, especially here in Africa. Yes, so and they don't need this Silicon Valley. In most cases, they don't need the Silicon Valley solution. I think what they need is a small seed. Okay, can they get a seed that can survive drought? Can they have a good irrigation system, a pump that doesn't break? Can they have a good storage facility so that their food can be fresh? The food they harvest can be fresh until they reach the final destination to the consumer. So these are things which I think we sort of ignore sometimes, and we think about the shiny solution. Um, the truth is, the world food system, it will not be transformed. I don't think it will necessarily be transformed by one big invention when it comes to food and agriculture. Based on my experience working with agri startups, and I made a comment that we try to technologize. I don't know how to put it, if that's the term. We try to technologize everything. We try to all our problems. All our problem is an app, a software. You need a software for this. You need an app. Not necessarily. There is a very good documentary, one of the best, no, TED Talk that I watched. And it was this Nigerian woman that used to work with the World Bank. And she said there's a project, I think it was a village in Nigeria. They were trying to solve, it was an agri project, World Bank project. And this particular community have been struggling with irrigation. This is irrigation system. They had been struggling with it for years. World Bank experts, the World Bank will come, you know what, we need this type of technology, we need this type of irrigation system. I said they've been trying over and over and over and over, it wasn't just working. And she said one day she was surprised to see in another community there was something a farmer did that had to do with bottles. I think he planted bottles, in made, I don't know the what she was describing, but I know he did something with plastic bottles, gathered them, and did something in the farm. And that was the solution. Oh. For this irrigation problem, they've been trying to technologize and bring a lot of experts from from the World Bank. And she said she was so shocked to her bone marrow. And it reminded her of, even when we teach kids, we feel like everything has to be westernized. We tell them A is for apple, B is for ball, instead of using our own um, languages to even teach our kids. So I think it's the same thing. We live, yes, I'm very aware of the 24th century and the fact that I cannot deny that we live in a very advanced age. This is the age of technology. This is AI is here to stay. However, I don't think all of our problems, especially even when it comes to food, can just be put in an app and it solves the solution. I said that a lot of our food system, a lot of people don't know that the food that you eat are grown by smallhold farmers. A lot of it, not even commercial farms. So I think I don't necessarily think the world food system will be transformed by one big invention. Oh, I think we've lost Choma. Okay, you're back. Okay. So, yes, somebody said don't try to amplify everything. I don't know who put that. Is it you? So, I think the question is not how to make small inventions or small innovations seem big. I think the question is how do we celebrate and support people who are already doing the quiet, the unglamorous work for feeding their communities? You go to this community, I can bet you it's something I've been trying to research on, which I already started. There are small solutions that people are building that are actually working for their communities. I remember watching a documentary on CNN where this guy, it's in, in Kenya, some of their communities in Kenya, the arid line part, they do have this irrigation problem, you know. And I know there was somebody from South Africa that had built like a solar machine or something that they were able to bring down all the way to Kenya to sort of help these communities. So you see, things like that, the small solutions that are already working. Yes, it might be a drone, fine. It might not necessarily be a drone flying over the farm, you know. It might be just small solutions that people are working on that is actually solving the problem in the community for food system. So I think how do we convince people, like you said? I think we tell stories. It's one thing I'll be saying. You show them that the ordinary is not the opposite of extraordinary. The ordinary is where extraordinary begins. That ordinary solution is where the extraordinary begins. So I think that is how we can start convincing people um, about small solutions that are okay, especially in the food system. Yes, I hope I did justice to that question.
I think you did justice to it. And I think also Vusi talks about this, how we have, yes, we agree that the role of technology is critical in 21st century, but we have amplified literally everything, that we are building solutions that are based on technology, forgetting that there are a lot of people that don't have access to even mobile phones.
Phones.
So there are
Exactly.
lots of places that don't have access to reliable network. So there's the device, there are like different levels of like smartphone penetration. There is the
Yeah.
device itself, there is the
Mhm,
network, there is the
mhm.
extra income to buy data to keep on device. There
Yes.
are a lot of people that don't have that level of access, but we have
Mhm.
everything.
Yes.
Our connection, our clothes, our food, everything. We're trying to build apps. Like less of the apps are more of like real.
Real solutions that are actually solving the problems, and they're solving the problems at not just large scale but slowly from that small scale smallholder farmer. He has a storage facility where he knows okay, I can store my food there because that's one of the in fact Nigeria has one of the biggest food wastage challenge in Africa.
Yeah.
Tons and tons and millions of food wasted. Like, okay, I can have a storage facility, or we have processing zones that are close to the farms. Processing zones. Processing zones is not necessarily an app. We need somebody can invest in processing zone where it's easy for the farmer that is growing tomato to just take it to the processing and process it and have your ketchup and have your tomato paste.
Yeah.
And obviously, we have the issue of insecurity in Nigeria. So you see, these are all things. Maybe instead of just building up, we can even start looking at the value chain itself of food system. What are the entire value chain? So what can we do in this aspect, in this aspect, in this aspect? So that's why I said I believe the extraordinary starts from the ordinary itself.
Yeah, thank you so much. And that is one key thing we should actually also take away from this stream. A lot of people are looking for extraordinary ideas, right? And they are filled, their bank is filled with good ideas, but because they
Mhm.
don't think it's extraordinary enough, they don't have the audacity. Sorry for that. Take a sip of
Mm.
your tea, please. Yeah. So, and they don't have the audacity to bring out some of these solutions into the world because, the like you said, the extraordinary is not the enemy of the ordinary. Everything starts from an ordinary solution. And most times we should not build for, there's also the obsession. I also think it's because of donor funding, or like looking for
Mm.
funding. About reach. How many people will this reach? If it can solve 100 farmers problem, that's enough, and we will build something else for the next 1,000 farmer. Not we are trying to build something that is overly scalable. Most times it might not be scalable, but if it solves a problem,
Mm.
we should focus on that.
Focus on it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very good point. I remember, I mean, there was something I failed to even mention, like when I started working in the UN, because I was sent to UNDP, the headquarters. I was sent to UNDP Kenya, and oh my god, I know when you find yourself in such, it's the UN, you might maybe feel a bit intimidated sometimes, but I didn't feel intimidated. I felt, look, I worked hard to get here.
Yeah.
I worked hard in my career. Yes, I worked hard to get here, and I deserve to be here. So I wasn't feeling intimidated. The only thing is, I was just more of like very. I was happy, the quality of the people I met there, because I remember talking about some. I mean, because sometimes they do this large scale projects, just what you were saying, where they spend thousands of dollars, and sometimes I'm like, the money. I'm like, I've done grassroots, so I will reach more people. Like, I really even have this amount of resources. So
Mm,
I was not still afraid to give example of work that I've done and what I think can work. And
yeah.
I'm not saying it's not like they were eating the money. They're not. I mean, it's the UN. Everything is documented for everything. It's just I was not afraid to challenge some of the things they are doing and say, yes, it's good, it's great, but we can also try other methods to also get this result. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Fanto. I know we're almost at the end.
Yeah.
Well, let me sneak in this one question before I ask for your thoughts. The African Union agenda is really big, right? And there's also the whole thing. I think when I listen to some of these career coaches around, that people should tie their jobs to SDGs, right? And, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
not sure what that helps those people to do though. But the current UN agenda is massive and is institutional. Even the SDGs, I think almost at 2030, we thought it was very far back, but so it's not, it's here. But for a young woman that is, you know, finding her feet, right? And she's watching this live stream. How does, she find her place? What do you think that young women can start doing, to find themselves as contributors to this vision? What do you think they can start doing today? Practical things that they can start doing today to find their place in this vision by 2063.
Okay, so first, I want to say both the UNSDG, that's more of a global framework for the world. But you look at Agenda 2063, it's the African Union, so it's more of a framework for building Africa in the next about 50 years, because it's Agenda 2063. So we have, you know, it's a very big agenda. So I think the first question I'll ask is, why should the world give you a space? Why should Africa give you a space as a woman, as a young African woman? Why? Um, because I think sometimes we have this sincerity factor that for impact and relevance. Oh, I am passionate. I am passionate about impact. I am passionate about empowerment. I am passionate about yeah, sincerity. I think it has its value. That's between you and God, being sincerity. But being sincere, but sincerity is not what's going to, because you have the passion. So there are some things I wrote down. I think the first question, the first thing I'll put here is your environment. understanding how the world works. Yes, we have. Um, you need to understand the environment, which is Africa, your own country, your own community where you're coming from, understanding your environment, and how you can function in that environment. I was saying, you've never seen the fish that is in the water complain about, the tilapia are suppressing us, they are oppressing us, the sharks are oppressing us. No, everybody's just functioning under that water and living there, like, because they understand the environment. They understand how the shark works, they understand how this other works, they understand. So we really need to understand our environment. That's one thing I'll say. Understand your environment, how it functions. What are the policies that guide your environment? How has your environment evolved over time? What's the history? And then how are you as a person? How are you living in the environment? Is it an environment you need to stay in? Do you need to change? Do you need to pivot? So I think environment is good. And that environment leads me to say, the operating system of that rules this world changed from 2020. If you notice, it has changed drastically. So you need to learn how to navigate change. Everything is changing. So we shouldn't miss the character of change. That's one thing I want us to take note of. We shouldn't miss the character of change. You want to be part of this agenda. Change every day. What new? I'm not saying you have to keep up with everything, but you need to know, how is the system changing? What has changed since, maybe in the next, we all know the world has changed. This, in fact, 2026, how many things have happened since January? We've experienced so many things, Donald Trump, we've experienced the Third World War almost happening, so many events. Even in Nigeria here, since January, look at the amount of activities and events that has been influencing conversations, that have been influencing policies since the start of this year. So we need to take note of change. In fact, if you are not able to keep up with the character of change, you should not even bother of thinking how it can be part of a big agenda. So another thing we should take note of is change. And then um another thing I think I'll put is your capacity. Your capacity, yes. I really love the idea of dreaming. It's something I say. Taking that freedom to dream. You know, I feel like sometimes a lot of time greatness comes from dreaming. Not hard work. When you're able to plug yourself, because when you dream big, you plug into a higher currency than your experience. But why I say capacity is capacity in different areas, in terms of your skills, hard skills, in terms of your character, and in terms of your hands. Your hands, what can you do? What problem can you solve? Okay, this is the agenda 2063. Look at it as a whole. What is my role? What can I do there? And then character, obviously, who you are as a person, very important. And then I'll go back to what I said about education. And so I was saying the capacity part, about your hard skill, your soft skill, and then your character. And then I was talking about being educated. And in education, I defined it as, it's the right of this your human spirit to be able to experience the world freely, to question it deep enough, to find the options that exist in it, and to know which of these options to embrace as a matter of supreme importance or urgency. So I feel you don't need to, that question that you asked of how to be extraordinary. I think I'll have to change that a bit and say you don't need to be extraordinary.
Hmm.
You just need to know, why should the world give you a space? Why space? Why? So if you know why they should give you a space, you know you are coming there to contribute your own quota based on some of these things, I think we should take note of your capacity, which I said, your education, that's like your view of the world, the options that exist, which one should I take, and then your environment, and then I said taking note of change, the change and what is happening around you. And I think I'll just leave to say this thing that you create value to create a higher resolution of what already exists. So that's how we create value. We create value to create a higher resolution of what already exists. I think for me, I think I'll end it there. If there's any other thing I want to add, maybe I'll add for the questions that people ask. So and then
Yes.
also I'll say in terms of change, don't be loyal to just what is working today. You know,
Hmm.
don't be loyal to what is working today because it might not work for you tomorrow. So always give yourself room to adapt, to adapt, to adapt as the change is happening. And also don't forget that you lead when you see the need.
Yes. Clock it. This is the part that the Gen Z says, clock it. Oh, clock it.
Okay.
We clocked that. Oh my God. Thank you
Yeah,
so much. So it's been
yeah.
such
I'm
an
seeing a question here. Hmm.
yes, yes. Someone has a question and is really on this taking initiative. So great discussion. My question is, what if you take an initiative, take an action at work, but there's a pushback? It is not appreciated, your idea is not approved. What else do you need to do? It hurts to come up with something and it's not used, and it forces you to sit back and watch, keeping your ideas to yourself.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a very in the context of I'll say a lot of, well, I won't necessarily say Africa because I think it can happen anywhere. But I think I need to acknowledge first that it is painful and it hurts when you're trying to bring up a change, you're trying to shake somewhere, and then you have this push or this pullback. I feel like what I always tell people or what I believe in. I feel like you find your people.
Hmm.
The environment, like one thing I mentioned is the environment. How you should understand how your environment and how your world works. And so maybe from this experience, you get to know that okay, this environment I'm in is not one that maybe appreciates change, or one that appreciates adapting and taking on new initiative. So I think it's a lesson to learn. First of all, after acknowledging your feelings, you also have to learn that okay, maybe the environment I find myself is not the environment that accepts change, or that appreciates adapt adapting or change. So what you want to do is again, because I don't know the context of what you're trying to do, is it something that affects your work? Is it something that needs to be done? And if it's not done, you don't see yourself maybe progressing. Because if that's the case, then it's a more complex issue where I can tell you to start maybe looking for how to looking for how to maybe pivot, I'll say. But however, if it's not necessary, if it's just on a general level, I would say hold it as of now. You keep that change and take it somewhere else where it will be appreciated, and yes. So I feel that there are other environments you find yourself that you first of all, that's why I say understand the environment, because not all environment is going to be able to accept and just um take you as it, or present whatever the situation is. Your environment is important, but what I would advise you is, if it's not something that's detrimental to your work, because I can see this more of like a work situation, a work, then maybe you want to hold back a bit and then just study the environment and maybe how they do things. Maybe in the long run, they'll get to see. Oftentimes, if it's something that is very major, they will definitely get to see why they need to go with your change or your suggestion. Because I know so many things will be at stake that can go wrong. Another thing I also suggest is maybe, are you the only one who is working on this? Because sometimes people push back when they feel people push back when they feel, if they feel like, okay, maybe your approach is, you're making it look like, because like I said, you also have to apply wisdom. Maybe you're making it look like, maybe it's your boss or your superior, you're trying to make them look like, oh, they don't know anything. Because power, this is something that I didn't talk about. Power, it's so important to know the people who are play, not because you're trying to um maybe gain favor or anything, but you need to understand also how to play to win. So maybe, are there other people you can meet and work with to present this change you're trying to bring? And also, how are you going about implementing it? Are you downplaying maybe some of the work they've already done? Because sometimes when people have put in work to do something, especially superiors, they might feel a bit, maybe you're trying to outstage them. So the context again is, are there other people that you can lobby with and work with to be able to implement this change? Are there other superiors that you can also meet and try to explain and tell them what is at stake in a way that, because you also have to use wisdom. They say, never, usually say don't outshine the master. And it's in context, by the way. So maybe you want to look at, are there other staff, other people I can work with to be able to implement the change that we are looking for? Maybe if you go as a group, you go with other people, you present it in a way where it's like, okay, we're not saying you people are entirely wrong. We're just saying maybe we should approach things this way. It will be better. If all that you've exhausted all those options, please hold your peace. Hold your peace and take your change somewhere else. Take it to where you'll be appreciated. Take it to where you have like-minded people. So it might just be that environment is not an environment that is open to your suggestion, or open to your change, or open to accepting, to adapting. So you might just want to, you know, save it. You save it, and that does not mean you entirely, no, you now say, okay, I will not be speaking up anymore. I will not want to, because here I was rejected. No, please. Because entirely some systems, that's what they do. They suppress you. They suppress you so that you don't speak up. They suppress you so that you don't know what you're supposed to stand for. No. The only thing is that maybe you just need to change. That is not an environment that can adapt or take. So I need to pivot. I hold it. When I find myself somewhere else, then I give it a go. Or if it's something you can do on your own on a personal level, you try it. Maybe try it and then you say, okay, oh, this is how I did it, and this is the results, and then present it. Maybe just then they might see it different. And so,
Thank you so much, Fanto. You have really, I think you have touched on all the multiple things, even without understanding the context. How, considering, what the context is, if it's at work, if there's and one key thing you talked about is there's always a power play in the world, right? Both at your workplace, both in the family, both in the community. Understanding that power play and playing it to win. There's something that I don't know who talks about this thing, even as people that identify as Christians, we believe that we forget that we're in the world. There's the way the world works, right? They're not asking you to come and do what the worldly people are doing. They're just saying that understand how their world works and then play it to your own advantage without, exceeding your principles, right? Play it the right way just to ensure that you win, right? There's no use playing and then you are not winning, right? You also talked about how, considering what the idea is it something that you can implement on your own outside the organization, right? I know some people have done a couple of things on that, right? Is it also something that, yes, partner with people? I know growing up, I actually wanted to be a lobbyist. I might end up getting, but are there other people that you can work with to also achieve your goal? And that's something in our current world we don't understand. Most times you have a good idea, but on your own, you can never execute on it, right? You need other people. And most times when you approach those other people, they want to take up that idea. You're like, but it's my idea. So you need to also ask yourself, for the greater good, is it, do I need to hold on to this thing, or do I need to yield it to make sure that this person that has enough power to execute on this idea is able to do that, right? A lot of good stuff. You shared a lot of good things, and then that even in the midst of all these things, don't let whatever system you're currently working in suppress you, right? Don't let it suppress you. Don't let it make you lose your voice, and keep on sharing, keep on taking initiative, keep on sharing your ideas. And one day you will find your people. I also talked about it.
Mhm.
One day you will find your people that where your ideas will be relevant and valued and appreciated, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Phanto. I learned a lot. If you learned a lot, please type it in the comments. I see some people on LinkedIn and on our
Can I
YouTube.
add
Please.
one more thing as my
Yes,
goodbye?
please. Yes, please.
So the next thing I would say, we just spoke about power,
Yeah.
and my mind just went to, please, we need power. I have
Oh,
to
yeah.
be so. I just have to be honest. As young African women and men, we need power. I know a lot of people will be like, power. Yes, you need it. Let me tell you some of the things that you're going to be able to influence or change. If you do not have power, it's not about money. Money boils down to power. I hope people know that.
Yeah.
If you're able to have
Yeah.
power, and when I say power now, I'm
Yeah.
talking about influence. So this is something I'm telling you people what something I'm trying to do practically. Let me just tell you what I'm trying to do. I've traveled a lot, but I've told myself going on forward, if I want to travel and go to any place, I'll write a letter to meet maybe the decision makers in that environment. Maybe a local chief. Who knows? Maybe the king of that area. Maybe the minister. I don't know. Just somebody. Maybe I'll say, oh, I want to come and pay a visit to see your office or something. Start making allies, start engaging them in discussion.
Mhm.
Places you go to, start meeting important people. Ah, yes, they'll say no, they are not available. But can all of them say they are not available? Maybe they might be intrigued to want to know who is this person that is coming all the way to come and meet me? What do they want to meet me for? So I've told myself, as a woman who has positioned herself to contribute her quota in Africa, I am going to need allies. I am going to need that power. Yes, God gives. I'm not talking about the power of just you getting influence and just being drunk with it. I'm not talking about just auxiliary by power. I'm talking about influence, having allies and people where you can be able to render your voice, and you can have supporters too for some of the things if a continent like Africa. Let me tell you, you need to know people. I'm just trying to be honest. You need power. You need to have power. It's not just, oh, I need the money and the influence. You need to have some level of power that when they talk, we all know that if Ngozi Awela is talking, there's a level of power she has. Yes,
Yeah.
there's a level of influence that she has, and that will make people listen to her. Not just because she's saying the right thing. She can be able to um maybe she wants to navigate something. There's some people she knows she can call. So please, they all are networking, but this is an idea I'm giving us now. When we travel, let's start asking who are the kings, the queens, the chief of the community or the place or the city I'm going. Can I have opportunity to meet them? Just have discussion with them, build contact, build influence. Why not?
Thank you so much, Fanto. And honestly, I think we probably need to have another session. This point, this point that you touched on about having influence, I think is very critical. Yes, we need to work to make sure we make money,
Mhm.
but influence is important. The
Yeah.
change that we are vying for, we can never achieve it unless we have influence. And even in this, and I like the practical thing you shared about engaging, reaching out to people. What's the worst that can happen? They will say no, you move on. There are other people too, right? Engage, be invested in having influence. You need influence, you need allies, and you need supporters. You need people to support your
Yes.
vision, not necessarily with money. You you need more support beyond money, honestly. You
Yeah.
need a lot of things. You need people, you need influence. You need influence. So if you are, especially for, I think I tell people one of the key ways to build influence is Get on social media. I am not a fan of it, but I'm doing it. Share anything, just build influence. Try to meet with people, try to build out your contact. It's really important. It's really important if we want to make the change that we want to see. Thank you so much, Fanto. I appreciate the time. I know we're already 20 minutes out.